I'm Not Your Rescue Dog Part 1. The Drive. My name's Ryan, I'm 34, and I've been married to Madison for the past 8 years. We met in our mid-20s. Me, the quiet guy who loved fixing cars and fishing on weekends, and her, the lively marketing executive who lit up every room she walked into. People always said we balanced each other out. I used to believe that. Last Friday started like most others. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., made my usual black coffee and sat on the porch scrolling through my phone. Madison was still asleep upstairs. She always complained that my early mornings messed with her sleep. So we started living like polite roommates, doing our own morning routines. Back then I told myself it was compromise. Now I wonder. Around 8 o'clock I heard her upstairs, music blasting from her Bluetooth speaker, the sound of hangers clattering and suitcases zipping. She was packing for her long-awaited spa weekend with her friends, something she'd been planning for months. I'd even surprised her with a designer overnight bag for Christmas to take with her. She posted a whole Instagram reel about it, tagging the brand. When she came downstairs with her makeup done and hair curled, she casually mentioned that her friend's husband had bailed on driving them to the resort. "Would you mind taking us?" she asked, smiling sweetly. "It's only 5 hours each way, and you'll have the whole weekend to yourself." I hesitated. I had plans to meet my best friend Caleb for a fishing trip on Saturday. But then she tilted her head and gave me that look, the one that always made me fold. So I caved, like I always did. Loaded their bags, cleaned out the truck, made sure there were enough snacks and water bottles for the trip. By 10 a.m. we were on the road. Madison sat in the passenger seat and her 3 friends, Nicole, Haley, and Taylor, were crammed in the back. They chatted endlessly, mostly about people I didn't know. I just focused on the road, content to be the chauffeur. By hour 3, they'd cracked open some pre-mixed margarita pouches and were loud enough to drown out the music. I didn't care, until the conversation shifted. Nicole complained about her boyfriend not listening, and then Madison chimed in. "Honestly," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "he's like a rescue dog. You feed him, he wags his tail. So easy to control." There was a pause, 3 seconds of dead silence, and then all of them burst out laughing, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My knuckles turned white, but I said nothing, just kept driving. They must have realized I could hear because they quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. Her words echoed in my mind for the rest of the drive. Rescue dog, so easy to control. When we arrived at the mountain resort, some stone and glass paradise tucked into the hills, I got out to help unload, but they didn't wait. Madison tossed her bag over her shoulder, turned to me and said, "Don't forget to wash the sheets before I get back, they stink like you." Then she laughed. So did her friends. I stood there for a few moments surrounded by valet staff and other vacationers, while the woman I loved walked away without a thank you. I'd just spent 10 hours driving them round trip, nothing, not even eye contact. The drive back was silent, no music, no podcasts, just 5 hours of me and my thoughts. I replayed every argument, every little compromise I'd made in our marriage. When I gave up my guys' night, when I let her talk me into spending holidays with her parents instead of mine, when my bonus went to a new fridge instead of the down payment for a garage I dreamed of opening. By the time I got home it was almost midnight. I walked from room to room in our house, my house, and I realized there were no photos of my family, none of my things on the walls, even the coffee maker was the one she insisted on. Later I logged onto our shared desktop and noticed she hadn't logged out of her social media. I know it's wrong, but I clicked. 2 hours later I was still reading messages to her friends, about me, about how she trained me, about how she picks fights when I bring up things that matter so she can spin it back on me, jokes about how I'd do anything for her if she gave me a kiss and a smile. They called me a project, a pet. I wasn't her husband, I was a well-behaved dog who'd fetch and follow and ask for nothing. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room until sunrise. When I saw the first rays of daylight hit the windows, something in me hardened. I wasn't going to be someone's pet anymore. Part 2. Reset. Saturday morning I called Caleb. Told him everything. At first he thought I was joking, but then I showed him screenshots, videos, even a screen recording of Madison mocking me while I fixed our sink, making faces behind my back as she FaceTimed Nicole. We started making moves. First, the bank. I opened a new account in my name only and transferred half of what was left in our joint account, enough to leave the bills paid but protect what was mine. Then I went through the statements. Madison had been siphoning money for 3 years. Not huge amounts, $300 here, $400 there, but it added up, over $20,000 in a separate account I didn't know existed. Turns out our savings for a house wasn't real. That dream was just mine. I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed, packed her things and moved them to a nearby storage unit, paid for a full month, texted the info to her sister Grace, the only person in her family who ever treated me like I mattered. I canceled every unnecessary subscription. Luxury beauty boxes, meal kits she only used once a month, a streaming service for documentaries she never watched. Then I sat down and wrote a simple message. Attached screenshots. Sent it to our closest friends and family. Not a public call out, just the truth so she couldn't twist it. The responses were mixed. Her friends called me controlling. My family was shocked but supportive. Grace told me she was sorry, and that she'd suspected for a long time Madison never valued me. Madison texted Sunday night, "Why aren't you responding then? This isn't funny. Then, we need to talk." On Monday, I took the day off and made our house feel like mine again. Rearranged the furniture, tossed the decor she loved but I never chose, changed passwords, disconnected her from every account. It felt like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. At 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. She stood there, overnight bag in hand, trying to open the door with her old key. The camera captured everything, her confusion, her pounding, her voicemails turning from sweet to furious. Tuesday morning I filed for divorce. Part 3, the confrontation. 2 days later, she showed up at my work, mascara running, tears streaming down her face. She made a scene in front of my coworkers, crying about how I changed the locks and asking if I was cheating. I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm not your rescue dog anymore." That's when she knew, really knew. She followed me to the parking lot, screaming about how I invaded her privacy, how I was blowing things out of proportion. I kept walking. That evening I agreed to meet with her, just once, at the house. I laid out every piece of evidence on the dining room table. Caleb helped me set up a recording device. Legal in our state, my lawyer confirmed. At 7:30 she arrived. She wore the blue dress I liked, perfume I hadn't smelled in months. It was all an act. She walked around the house like a guest, complimenting the changes, offering to pour wine. I didn't say much, just led her to the table. When she saw the evidence, bank records, messages, photos, she started crying. Said it was all a joke, out of context. Said the $20,000 was for a surprise trip. Then it became emergency savings, her therapist advised. When I showed her shopping receipts, she finally snapped. "I deserve nice things after putting up with you for 8 years. There it was. The truth, and it kept coming. Anger, accusations, threats, tears, manipulation, promises, seduction, more threats. Then the doorbell rang. It was Nicole, alone, nervous. Madison lost it, accusing her of betrayal. But Nicole had screenshots of her own, messages from Madison bragging about cheating with her boss, planning to divorce me after securing a promotion. There were even photos, more than I wanted to see. I sat on the couch and laughed, actually laughed. Nicole looked at me and asked, "Why would she do this to someone who treated her so well?" Madison couldn't answer. She just sat there, red-faced, silent. Eventually, I handed her my lawyer's card and asked her to leave. She cried on the porch, asked if 8 years meant nothing. I told her they meant everything. That's why this hurts, and I closed the door. Epilogue, aftermath. It's been 6 weeks. The divorce is underway. Madison's been telling people I cheated, that I'm unstable. But the truth always finds its way out. Her boss dumped her. He was married too. Nicole's left that whole friend group behind. Grace and I talk regularly. She says Madison is staying with their parents and spiraling. As for me, I'm seeing a therapist. I'm dating slowly. I'm learning to enjoy mornings again. I'm cooking my own meals, fixing up my project car, and listening to music without anyone telling me it's too loud. This wasn't the life I wanted, but it's the one I needed. And I'm building it one choice at a time, on my terms. So no, I'm not anyone's rescue dog. I never was. The end.